Welcome to this special Italian wine podcast broadcast. This episode is a recording off Clubhouse, the popular drop-in audio chat. This Clubhouse session was taken from the Wine Business Club and Italian Wine Club. Listen in as wine lovers and experts alike engage in some great conversation on a range of topics in wine. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. And remember to subscribe and rate our show wherever you tune in.
Okay, hello everybody. Buonasera a tutti. My name's Stevie Kim and welcome to Italian Wine Club. How you guys? Ciao Gabriele.
Hi, good evening.
Ciao Pietro. Ciao Andrea.
Buonasera.
Buonasera. Okay. All right. So we're back with Gabriele Gorelli, the Neo MW, Pietro Russo, the winemaker, and Andrea Lonardi, the commercial savvy executive, better known as the Three Musketeers. You know the story by now. Gabriele, Pietro, and Andrea have been studying together for the MW exams and have become besties ever since. They've also curated the Italy section of the new Sotheby's Wine Encyclopedia together. So I think it's safe to say that they are indeed Italian wine experts. We've recorded several sessions with the Three Musketeers, which included old vines, natural wines, Verdicchio, to name a few. Check them out on Italian Wine Podcast to replay if you've missed them. I usually run a weekly room on Thursdays, 8 p.m. Central European Time. Today we will be talking about an overarching area of sparkling wines of Italy. I must confess that when I suggested this topic, it wasn't completely altruistic as I'd signed up for my D4 exam. So I'm really hoping that these dudes will give me some pointers because I've yet to finish reading the book. Speaking of Italian Wine Podcasts, I just wanted to thank everyone for following us. We've hit 1 million listen mark on Tuesday, so we are absolutely thrilled. So if you can give a follow and leave a thumbs up on Apple Podcast or Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to your podcast, we'd really appreciate that. As usual, I like to remind the speakers that this room will indeed be recorded and replayed on the Italian Wine Podcast. We do this for all those who cannot participate on this call and as a study tool for those doing the deeper dive into Italian wines. Thank you for joining us here on Clubhouse and listening to us also on Italian Wine Podcast because it is really a labor of love. So let's get to this. Ciao ragazzi. Let's start with Gabriele.
Hey.
Ciao, come stai?
I'm good. I feel like this is the last day of school, and
well, you guys are such wimps. I can't believe it. You're tired already. Welcome to my life. Hello.
Yeah, I'm going to miss the jingle mostly because it's really mesmerizing.
I think I'll send it to you. I'll make a copy and send it to you. Okay. So, we're going to talk about sparkling wines of Italy. Can you just give us kind of an overview of what are Italian sparkling wines? Of course, everybody knows Prosecco, and maybe some of them know Franciacorta, but give us kind of the carrellata, the entire list of the sparkling wines.
Okay, the list won't be exhaustive, of course, but it would be, what it is more relevant volume-wise. And of course, you mentioned Prosecco, so I'd start with the Charmat method or the Metodo Italiano wines. And that represents more than the 95% of the sparkling wine produced in Italy, of which Prosecco represents a half. Apart from Prosecco and the Charmat method, we do have Bracchetto. So it's red variety vinified as Charmat with relevant residual sugar too. We do have Asti, of which I see among the people following us, there is Giacomo Pondini, who is the director of the consortium.
So maybe we can have him up later.
Yeah, I think we will have him up for new, challenges of the region, since he's there since a few months. And of course, Asti is made by Moscato Blanca Petit Grain. And then we have Lambrusco, which can be also ancestral method, but it can be many varieties, and many varieties are ascribable to Lambrusco. There are many types of Lambrusco, and this is the other very big, player. It was once exported like in the mid-60s, 1960s, in massive amounts to the US, and it was probably the most well-known wines, sparkling speaking, long before Prosecco. Now, the switching starts and so on. Now, Lambrusco, it's a bit more steady, while Prosecco has been doubling the volumes in the last 8 years or so. And so this could be, the first, relevant players on the Charmat method, but then we do have the ones that produce less, but they produce the Champenoise method, so the bottle fermented method. You mentioned Franciacorta, which is Lombardy, an area that is with classic grape varieties, Champenoise grape varieties. Of course, there is also their identity grape varieties, which is Herba Mat, which is a new thing to the region. Then coming back to Piemonte, we do have Alta Langa, which is possibly the most historically allowed, appellation among the bottle fermented throughout Italy, and Trento DOC, of course, which accounts for half of the bottles produced by Franciacorta, but same varieties, so Champenoise varieties, and it is a region which is severely impacted by the mountains. So it is, as they like to say, a bollicina di montagna, so mountain sparkles.
So, I mean, it's really Prosecco. The Prosecco is king right now, and it's still growing. Is that correct?
It is still growing, yes, steadily. And it is also thanks to the new category that they had been able to launch in 2019, which is the Prosecco Rosé, the DOC Rosé, which I've been told a few weeks ago that it should have been inside the original production regulation of the DOC of 2009, when the actual Prosecco phenomenon started. But it is only there in since 1 year, but it's been a hit, and it is a very intelligent operation on my opinion, because it is going in a direction of premiumization of Prosecco, which is what the appellation needs.
So we'll talk a little bit more about Prosecco Rosé in a bit. But what are the notable benchmark wines that you can recommend for us to try? Maybe you can just for the two categories of your choice, because that it's quite a few, right? Like we were talking about Prosecco, Barchetto, you mentioned Asti, you mentioned Lambrusco, Alta Langa, Franciacorta, Trento DOC. It goes on and on. What can you make some suggestions for our audience and for our students? What are the benchmark wines, for example, for Lambrusco?
Lambrusco, it's one of my wines which I think that has a high latitude of food pairing. So I think it's very indicated for Asian markets because of its style, and it might appear in different forms less color, more bubbles, less bubbles, and more assertive and more soft. But I'd like to drink the Lambrusco as the people from Emilia do. So to me is the more assertive bubbles, and I like the one that is produced in the School of Agronomy near Rubiera, which is called Miglio Lungo, which is all made with several varieties. I think more than 25 old Lambrusco varieties that have been recovered by the school itself, and it's actually done by the students on the vineyards. And it is a style of Lambrusco which is a bit lighter and might be a bit more hard-edged, but can actually be drunk at several temperatures and has a very, very long persistence on the aftertaste, which is something that I like a lot. Or the very deep new wave of Lambrusco that came into the markets, especially internationally, by the last 6-7 years. There are some very, with generous, with brooding fruit one, like I think Ceci is one of the best examples, or Medici Ermete, it's another. So the people that really want to extract a lot of the anthocyanins, a lot of generosity, and these really brooding fruits from Lambrusco.
Do you want to give us kind of a small overview, the different types of Lambruscos, for example?
Oh yeah, of course. You do have the Grappa Rossa, which should be the most full-bodied. Then you have the Sorbara, which is the one that is more highly colored, and the Salamino, which is a bit, less bolstered. And then among the Reggiano, you can have several styles, but it's mainly deep colored. And all these styles come in several declinations. So you have several sugar amounts. You come from the Secco, which is less than 15 grams. Then you go to the Amabile, which is up to 35, and then up to the 50 grams Dolce. But I think, of course, for the food pairing, I think the Secco is ready enough. Even because with all those anthocyanins and tannins, it is already a wine which is balanced without having too much sugar feeling instead of the sugar figure itself.
I feel like Lambrusco is something kind of underestimated, right? Because I love Lambrusco, to be quite honest. It goes with everything, but it has this image, like in America, there was this whole campaign. I think you're too young to know, but there was this whole campaign, Riuniti on Ice, that's nice. And I think that's kind of what we remember, kind of the expensive, so easygoing, very sugary, substantive kind of drinks. So that's what we remember. But actually, I've visited a Lambrusco producer recently, and they are doing both ancestral method as well as metodo classico. Do you see that happening kind of as a trend?
I think so, especially with the ancestral method, which might be one of the next big things on the markets, because it is something you can control a bit less, and it does give you that additional layer of complexity most of the time. And Lambrusco it's very indicated for these kind of styles, which is actually the ancestral, meaning that was the ordinary way to do Lambrusco back in the time. And I think it's becoming way more interesting than on ice is nice, but yeah, here it's with food, it's good, I would say.
With food is good. I like that. With food is good. Okay. That'll be the new motto. Alrighty. Let's go to Andrea. Ciao, Andrea. Andrea, hello.
Yeah. Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm driving. Sorry.
Oh, you're driving. You're always driving. I don't know. I feel like you are a professional autista.
Oh, this I can do that in the future.
Yeah.
Instead of making sparkling wine, that might be an opportunity.
Listen, so do you want to give us kind of an overview on the methods of sparkling wine? What are the different methods for making Italian sparkling wine?
Well, for sure, the most important method is what Gabriele says, the traditional sparkling method. We have in Italy also what we can say.
Well, that's the most prestigious one, right? You can't say it's the most important, right?
No, you are correct. It's the most prestigious one, but it's not the most important one, especially in terms of numbers, because in terms of numbers, Prosecco is driving today the market, is 500 million bottles of wine already in the market. They are growing with the rosé, and that is the tank method. So the three major techniques are, the first one is traditional method, so it means that you make a base wine, and after that you inoculate with some yeast again, and you do the second fermentation in the bottle. And after that you can differentiate the quality of the wine by the time that you leave the lees, the wine on lees. And after that you have the final part of the method is the dégorgement, where you remove the lees from the bottle and you adjust with what we can call the liqueur d'expédition.
How do you say that in Italian? Liqueur d'expédition.
C'est la...
You forgot Italian.
Dosaggio.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank God we've got the master of wine.
Yeah, dosaggio. And finally, the second method that is typically Italian, the tank method. Actually, we call the method Martinotti method.
All right. So what is it, Martinotti or Charmant? Like the French.
Martinotti.
Okay,
The French say Charmat method, but actually the origin is related to Martinotti, and it is totally Italian. That is what I'm coming back to tell you, that Asti represent our city that in the future has to come back with this deep background and knowledges and charm also of the Italian sparkling wine city. This is where we come from in terms of sparkling. That is Asti, and Fondini after that can really better explain the deep truth about bubbles that we have in this.
Yeah, I invited Giacomo to speak just right now.
Okay. All right. So talking about the different types of methods. So are there any, like, pet nat seems to be like super popular right now. Is there anything, Giacomo, I'm just going to mute you just for now until we're ready to have you speak. Pet nat seems to be very popular elsewhere now. It's the kind of the trendy thing in terms of sparkling wine. Do you see that happening also in Italy?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm studying in that. I've already done some samples, some trials, and I think that I will release our first production next year about pet nat. Pet nat is a very increasing category in the market. It's strongly related to the fact that the sparkling category is growing, but it's also related to the fact that it's also related to the sparkling, but on the same time also to the fact that it's a natural product. Natural product is, as last time where we said, it's very difficult to define correctly what does it mean naturally, but that is a fermentation that starts in tank and after that finish in bottle, and there is no dégorgement, so you drink the wine as it was. So there is some, it's not really clear, it's not really stabilized. It's a niche market that was born in UK, especially in the last 10 years, but right now it's blooming everywhere, especially in the metropolitan areas where people are looking for wines with less intervention, natural wines, bio wines, and there are some probably interesting grape varieties to produce that also in Italy, because one of the major areas where the wine was born is Loire, related to Chenin Blanc, Claret, and that is an area where like an example with Verdicchio, I think that we might have some opportunities related to the great acidity and crunchiness and vibrancy that we can find in this grape variety. But also Ribolla in Friuli can also very suitable for this type of production. So I will see also in Italy in the future an important increase in terms of pet nut.
So what just give it to me straight. What is the difference between pet nut when they say that and ancestral? And, in Prosecco, they call it col fondo. And now legally you have to put sui lieviti, from what I understand. You can't call it col fondo, especially for DOCG. What are the differences in terms of technique, winemaking technique?
In terms of technique is that could be a col fondo method, start as a wine, and it is re-fermented in bottle or in tank, and after that it is bottled with some lees inside. The natural pet nut, so the original ancestral method, starting by juice and go directly into the bottle and ferment, do the first fermentation in bottle. So there is not at all a second fermentation. This is the major difference. So in the col fondo or in the all different type of wines with A's inside, they have a true fermentation. But with the ancestral method, there is only one fermentation.
So what kind of packaging? I mean, first of all, what kind of wine are you experimenting with pet nat? What kind of grapes?
We are experimenting.
This is classified. I'm joking.
We only have 50 people in the room.
But Gabriele is part of what we are doing, because that was also, it's part of our, you say, the Three Musketeers is part of our way of discovering, of studying together. We started to talk about pet nat with Gabriele and Pietro maybe 5 years ago. We started to taste some wines, enjoy, see the type of consumer, analyzing which category or which part of the market could be interested about this type of wines, but on the same time also have a look in terms of grape varieties and aspect related to grape varieties, pH, acidity, level of alcohol, contents of polyphenols that can be suitable to achieve this style of wine. And we agree that we finally agreed that Ribolla and Verdicchio both they can express this style very well.
Oh, fantastic!
Because they tend to produce they are not producing very high alcohol. So the wines that normally you can have from this grape variety, especially from Ribolla, they are not so high in terms of ABV or percentage of alcohol, and they tend to have the crunchiness and the little bit of tannic polyphenols character that usually you are requiring if you want to produce a pet nat. So the pet nat doesn't have the complexity from the lees aging, it has the complexity directly from the grape variety. And so it's a different, completely different approach than when you work with Pinot Noir or Chardonnay or the most suitable grape variety to produce traditional bottle fermented sparkling wine.
Rashmi, I just muted you. I'll get back to you once we're done with the panelists. So Andrea, have you been, are you experimenting with any different types of packaging? Because elsewhere, in the New World especially, they do a lot of pet nat in cans, for example.
Cans is a very...
Why don't we see any cans in Italy? Or...
But it's related to culture, it's related to our also way of our type of consumption. We drink a lot of wine during a meal and bring at the table a cane that is not really suitable for our culture. For people that are drinking most of the part of the wine that they are drinking out of a meal, possible a cane is a character, is a possible pack to use. But I think that cane, it will be more suitable for what we can say the added carbonated wine. So they are sparkling wine, but the CO2 it is added by machine. So it's an artificial addition. So it's not related to a second or first fermentation.
Okay, great.
what is interesting about packaging is that you need to analyze the type of consumer that you want to achieve, you want to grab with these wines. And most of the time, they are consumer that they are looking for natural type of wine. So packaging became a mandatory aspect to take care. Lightest bottle, and you can do it because you don't achieve the pressure that normally you achieve in a traditional sparkling method, but also the use of communication, the labels, they are more natural, they have a completely different approach. We are talking about some hipster style of consumer or consumer, they look about wine in a different way. So the first time that I drank with Gabriele and Pietro, actually it was a glass of Petnat, I say, but this is not wine, this is another thing. So you have to see the wine by different eyes.
So when are you
It is
releasing
the
the?
joining link between beer and sparkling wine, huh?
So they come, most of the consumer of Petnat come from beer, from the beer section for sure. So, and also packaging, so it's also related to beer.
So when will you be releasing your pet nut?
We have a trial that starts next week, and we will release just 1,000 bottles with different quality levels and different techniques in order to see the approach that we need. But next year it is the real. So we do some trial in order to industrialize the process next year.
Right. Okay, I'll be expecting a sample in my office next week.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. I would like to go to Pietro. Ciao, Pietro, the real winemaker here.
Hi, Stevie.
How are you? I can barely hear you. Can you get a little bit closer?
Yeah, sure. I'm pretty good, thank you.
Okay. We can't hear you very well. I don't know. Are you using headphones?
Yes.
Can you try taking them out? Maybe.
Let's try now.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't hear you very well.
Okay, let's try.
That's much better.
Okay.
Okay. So listen, Pietro, since you're the winemaker, I'm going to ask you the classic, WSET question. In terms of climate, moderating influences, soils, what do you need? What are the must-haves of the sparkling region to make sparkling suitable wine production?
Well, let's say that it's a very complex question because there are a lot of variables.
I think they'll ask something like that. So that's why I've asked you. So I'm trying to cheat a little bit.
That influence the potential quality of a sparkling wine. As a first answer, there is not a recipe for a perfect vineyard that is suitable for sparkling. But the first element, for example, if we look at the soil of the most famous sparkling areas, we could find such a high variegated condition. So, for example, the morenic soils that are originated from glaciers, we could find in Franciacorta, we can find in partially in the Trento DOC, but then in the Trento DOC there are also high limestone soil and silty soil that gives high quality wines. Then the same in Alta Langa, for example, there is a dominance on marl and calcareous clay that are typical for minerality and sapidity. Or Prosecco, in the Prosecco area, the most classic Prosecco area, Valdobbiadene, there is a very high variability.
But mostly on the plain field, like in the valleys, right? So very fertile.
Yes, actually, I would consider Le Rive as the best area, so the traditional area. So these are most hilly conditions. But there is a very variegated soil types, from sandy to marl or even morenic. So there are not one size fits all soil for let's say for quality sparklings. Then the other component is for sure the climate, as you said. This play a major role. In particular, we can maybe generalize a little bit because cooler climate are preferred, should be preferred. with good rainfall to avoid water stress during the growing season for sure. Areas with good diurnal shift in temperature or with a high altitude that amplify this process in keeping the temperature down during the night, for example. Let's say, generally speaking, conditions that favor a longer growing season, because the most important thing, as you might imagine, is the acidity and the low potential alcohol. So these are conditions for keeping this brightness, vivid acidity, and to translate this into the finished wine. And for sure, then there is other components in the viticultural practices that should favor this good canopy exposure and avoid direct sunlight into the grapes, because then there can be problems of phenolic ripeness or bitterness, especially nowadays that we are talking a lot about climate change and we are experiencing its impact. So, well, let's say each region, each traditional area has a very specific condition that favor even its typicity, combined for sure with the variety and the method of production.
Okay, so we're halfway into the call today. It's past. So I'm going to reset the room. We are Italian Wine Club. We are talking about sparkling wines of Italy, whether it's Prosecco, Franciacorta, Lambrusco, etc., etc. So if you have a question, please raise your hands. If you have a question to the panelists, Gabriele, Pietro, Andrea, or if you'd like to contribute in the discussion of sparkling wines, please raise your hand and I will bring you up to the stage. Let's start with Rashmi. Hello, hi. Rashmi, you have to open your mic now. It's on the bottom right-hand corner. Because I can't unmute you.
I got it.
Oh, there you go. Hi, how are you?
Very well.
I haven't seen you in a very long time.
I know. Sadly, this virus has caused trouble for all of us.
I know you're a Franciacorta, or you were a Franciacorta ambassador. Did you want to say something about Franciacorta?
Absolutely. Yes, I still am the Franciacorta brand ambassador for Florida and the Northeast here in the U.S. And, I think the biggest thing with Franciacorta is that, unfortunately, here in Florida, being that how hot we are, we do get compared to Prosecco a lot. And, one of my jobs is trying to make them understand the difference. And then you use the dialogue for champagne and you go secondary fermentation, and then I have to explain to them the acid and how such high quality wines Franciacorta produces. And then once they taste it, it makes it easier for them to understand. But Franciacorta is not that well known here, unfortunately. And I know it is very well known in London and Europe and Italy, and Japan is doing fantastic. But I think here we have to catch up with Prosecco and Champagne to kind of make them understand the high quality and the softness, especially Satén, right? It is Franciacorta's biggest contribution to our sparkling world, and the softness it brings in.
So how do you explain to Americans Franciacorta? And what are the main challenges? I guess you've mentioned it a bit. You've hinted to the fact that, you have to compare it to Champagne, right?
Yes, we have to it is the same method, right? So that's where I do have to go there, and I have to start by saying, if you like secondary fermentation in the bottle, you are going to appreciate Franciacorta. And then I think I bring in the acid part of it, because a lot of people don't like that searing acid, right? And Franciacorta being so food friendly, I go around with the Italian food, but I go around the food aspect of it, because everybody loves Italian food, especially in America. So I have to pair it with that. But the biggest challenge
Gabriele said food is good.
Yes, yes. So I think it's a fantastic.
Especially this time of the day, for us.
Yeah.
These times of.
I think
I'm
sparkling
drinking. I
wine.
don't know about you guys.
It's only 2 o'clock here. So, but don't you think, Gabrielle, that sparkling wine is so versatile that it pairs with any cuisine, and it has so much variety in sweetness also, right? So that diversity, especially in Italy. I mean, how many do you have? More than 100 appellations for sparkling wine in Italy?
I don't know.
Right?
That's a good question. How
Yes,
many
we
appellations?
do have no, we do have a lot, but the most important thing is that there are most of the sparkling, except for the Prosecco, of course, but that there are not under an actual territorial appellation. It's just Italian wine of quality sparkling. The QRD, which is the generic appellation for the sparkling wines from Italy. And I remember that in Wine to Wine in November 2019, so I think the last edition we did in person, there was an actual presentation that showed us that these sort of wines, so non-territorial driven wines, were taking over. I mean, they were growing a lot. Right after the lockdown, we do have the same data, sort of inverted, because now we found out that the DOP, so the geographic indications, are growing, whilst the non-geographic indications, so the generic things, the generic sparklings, are going down. So there are many appellations to say what you say, but probably more than 100. But the thing is, there are more than, I would say, 1,000 wines from territories that you will never suspect to be a sparkling wine place, but are actually producing that style.
But do you? I'll ask any panelist or even speakers on stage. I mean, do you think that one of the major problem or challenges of traditional sparklers for Italy is the fact that it's the quantity? Because if Franciacorta and Trento Doc together, they are producing only 10% of what Champagne produces. Is it just a matter of not enough visibility, not being in the market? What do you think, Pietro?
Well, I think it's much more a problem of cultural heritage, cultural problem. We mostly see sparkling wines as celebratory wines, such as champagne, for example. So it is difficult for people to go beyond that and try to pair it during a meal, a traditional meal, or pair it with other occasion for food, or sometimes appetizer. What is one of the reasons for the success of Prosecco is for sure that it has abolished this distinction. It's not anymore a celebratory wine. It's much more it's an everyday drinking, an everyday luxury wine. So I think the most important thing in education will be to trust the adaptability of the capability for sparkling wines to really adapt to such a wide range of occasions, in my opinion, at least.
Anyone would like to add?
I was going to say, Stevie, I get your point about the fact that there is low volume, but see, that is a double-edged sword for Franciacorta, because Franciacorta producers are very, very stringent in their quality parameters. So they really don't want to produce more. Maybe if we include Alta Langa, but you're right. I mean, between history and fantastic marketing, which Champagne has to offer, it's hard to compete. We don't have that kind of land. We don't have those kind of bottles to go around the world and spread the word about how wonderful sparkling wines from Italy are.
Andrea, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that Pietro just launched a very interesting subject related to the fact that when you're drinking a champagne, you are not drinking a glass of wine. You're drinking a lifestyle. Most of the consumer, they drink champagne as a lifestyle.
Rashmi, just 1 second. Rashmi, can you just mute yourself? Because there's an echo.
Sure.
And that is the same for Prosecco. Prosecco, right now, you are not drinking a Prosecco. You are drinking a lifestyle. You are drinking aperitif style of wine with bubbles, a wine that communicate conviviality, is something very easy to drink that everybody can understand and everybody can enjoy. For that reason, look how many times you go in a restaurant and they ask you, okay, as a starter, we have a Prosecco. And after that, they give you a sparkling wine that maybe is not a Prosecco. So Prosecco is a way of communicating a lifestyle, as a drink more than a region, and that is something that we need to protect. For that reason, there might be some other opportunities to develop sparkling wines. I'm really think for the future that some interesting red Italian grape varieties can be very interesting to produce good quality of traditional sparkling method, but we need to develop the occasion, we need to develop the message, we need to develop the intangible values that are behind the bottle of champagne. Champagne is communicating luxury, is communicating the beauty of champagne. So everybody wants to drink a glass of champagne, but not really for the taste of the wines, but much more for the intangible values behind the name champagne. And so if we want to develop something, we have to think also, even if it is niche, but we have to develop the message.
Great. Thanks, Andrea. I think there has to be a lot of marketing behind champagne. I mean, they spend a lot of money also in marketing for champagne, the entire region. Giacomo, ciao. Gabriele, did you want to ask him something or ciao, Giacomo.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Muskateers. I'm fine, thank you.
Ciao, Giacomo. And so, because Giacomo,
Ciao, Gabriele.
as I told you, it's not only the new director of the Consorzio Asti, but he's also a good friend and the former director for the Consorzio of Brunello di Montalcino up to last year.
Thank you for the presentation.
No, you're welcome. And since I know that, Asti is going through a big revival with the Moscato and the Asti DOCG together, and I'd like you to ask what are the challenges you are facing now, not only on the market, but especially in the vineyard and in the cellars.
Well, it's a tough issue that you're pointing to. That I would like to start with what Andrea just said, that when you drink a glass of wine, especially an Italian glass of wine, you're not only searching for a specific taste, but you're also searching for what comes with it. It's the image that you have of yourself and in relation with other people. So that's the starting point also for this kind of appellation. I mean, it was quite popular Asti back in the 80s and the 90s in Italy, so was quite familiar for everyone involved in the wine business, but also as a consumer knowing what Asti was. The first thing is bringing back Asti, especially in Italy, back to his historical role, to what it was, to what it has meant in the story of Italian wine. Because first of all, if tourists come to Italy and they don't see people drinking Asti when they go back to United States or to Russia, they won't ever get the wine the chance it deserves. That's the main issue for me at the moment. I mean, we all know that in Italy, with the taste has gone towards more dry wines, but everywhere else in the world, there are still a lot of people really keen on demi-sec or sweet wine. So we believe that we still have to push on the historical meaning of this wine, as it was born in 1865 as a classic method, but evolved into a tank fermentation with the Martinotti in 1895.
Why did that happen? You mean it was actually initially a traditional method?
It was
I didn't know that.
It all started with Carlo Gancia from the Gancia family, that after having spent part of his life in France, came back to Canelli, where in 1865 he experimented the classic method with the local variety, Moscato Bianco. And that's how it all started. They say that it was the first sparkling Italian wine ever produced. So it was like the starting point for all of us in the sparkling wine business. And it changed after 30 years, thanks to Federico Martinotti, who was the director of the experimental enological school in Asti. He was from a small village called...
so Martinotti was from Asti.
Yeah, in the neighborhood. Yeah,
okay.
Not far from Asti.
I thought he was from Prosecco.
No, actually was born here, but he was such important for that time that he developed everywhere in north of Italy his studies, his knowledge. And it changed it. And that one comes into the story. Charmat starts being known in 1910 because actually what Martinotti did was patenting the method, the tank fermentation. He patented the method, but not the equipment. That was patented by Charmat 15 years later. That's why we talk about these two guys at the same time, and we're still struggling to give back to Martinotti the central role that he deserves for our sparkling wines. And I totally agree with Andrea where he was saying that we should give him back his central position in our story. So we might think of creating something about his image.
So how are you?
Be an idea for the future.
The Rams of Italy is Asti.
Could be.
So what is the big revolution that or evolution that Gabriele was speaking about?
Well, actually, we had an evolution that started 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago, that also locally the local wineries started to experiment and a sparkling wine that was also not only sweet, but it was also could also have been extra dry, or demi-sec. And that's what we're doing. And the struggle at the moment, the main struggle is that with the climate changing, there's been we are afraid that the aromatic compounds of the grapes are going to be lost in maybe in 20-30 years. We're not going to be talking about aromatic grapes anymore. So that's something that we're really trying to focus on in the near future, because this changing weather won't guarantee us to maintain the aromatic part of the grapes that goes also in the wine, of course.
Giacomo, would you like to contextualize a little bit about Asti's production in terms of size compared to, for example, Prosecco?
Yeah, Asti is an appellation that actually is the appellation is Asti DOCG, but it also contains two different styles of wine: Asti Sparkling and Moscato d'Asti, which is more a fizzy wine, closer to a wine, not a sparkling wine. And the total production reaches around 90. Well, it has reached in 2020 91.5 million bottles, around 45 million bottles for sparkling Asti. The rest was Moscato d'Asti. And there are around 10,000 hectares involved in the production on 3 different provinces: Asti, Cuneo, and Alessandria. So there are many different kind of soils, many different altitudes. So it's quite an interesting various scenario for the grapes that are made.
Can you just remind us in terms of percentage, how much is Moscato d'Asti and how much is Asti?
Moscato d'Asti of the 91 million bottles is around 40%. 60% is Asti Sparkling, Asti Spumante.
Right. So, but we don't call it Asti Spumante anymore, right? It's just Asti.
It's Asti. It's easier to say Asti, but
it's
also the name of the appellation. That's a little bit awkward for us to explain, because you only have one appellation, which is Asti DOCG. Then if you look at the code of production, you will find it the sparkling Asti and the Moscato d'Asti. 2.5 bar pressure Moscato d'Asti, 3.5 at least Asti sparkling wine.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit confusing for foreigners, especially. They just know one is a bit sweeter than the other, but I'm not sure that's very convincing. Alrighty, Lan wanted to speak. Ciao, Lan.
Ciao, Stevie. I actually have a question for the three Musketeers and also one for Giacomo.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you all for sharing the knowledge and experience. We talk about the techniques, we talk about the appellations, but I wonder, what are your top 3 native Italian grapes for quality sparkling wine production? This question is for the 3 Musketeers. Then a question for Giacomo is about the upcoming variety for combating global warming, because we know that, for example, in Franciacorta, people are starting growing herbat to fight against global warming. What is the solution what is the solution for Asti?
So Lan is our VIA coordinator, and of course he loves to ask these simple questions and want to know if any of you are Nostradamus of this pod. We have about less than 10 minutes, so I think this will be the last round of comments, probably. So let's start with Andrea.
Okay, I pick 3 different grape varieties for different reasons. First, Verdicchio, because it has the capability...
You guys love Verdicchio, seriously.
Yeah, because it has the capability of grab the autolytic character as a Chardonnay, and that is quite important. Not a lot of grape varieties can really bring during the process this lovely bread crust character. Second, Durella from Soave area, a very interesting grape variety with an acidity as Chablis, with a chalkiness and saltiness in the palate, very distinct.
I think it's even higher acidity than Chablis.
Yeah. Could be very interesting, especially for long lease aging. We are talking about 60 months, so very, very long, but outstanding type of wine with lovely reductiveness in the nose. And finally, I bring something for red. And as a red grape variety, I think that maybe Corvina can be interesting in the future to produce a bubble from a red grape varieties, because it has a lot of similarities with Pinot Noir for many reasons. And so it might be interesting for the future to have a look about this grape variety that tend to produce low level of alcohol and a very high acidity, that are 2 mandatory aspects to produce great champagne like.
Great. Okay, thanks, Andrea. What about Pietro, our winemaker?
Well, as a native Sicilian, I will pick 2 Sicilian varieties.
You do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have some experience on sparkling for local varieties, more with the...
You make some sparkling wines already, right?
Yes, I do. I do traditional method with Pinot and Chardonnay, but actually we are also working on Nerello Mascalese.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
When is that coming?
It comes from Etna, and actually...
No. When are you coming out with the Nerello Mascalese sparkler?
It's aging on the list, so we will see in the next maybe 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Great news.
1 or 2 years at least. And Nerello Mascalese, because of its acidity, because it's when it's vinified and in white, it can be very interesting in terms of crispiness, vibrancy, and typicity from the volcan. And this is very suited for traditional method sparkling. And also because there is a tradition in Etna that we haven't told, but and it's still growing. Actually, it's a very interesting market, still niche, but it's growing very well. And the other is lucido or catarratto. Catarratto for Sharman method, because it's again, as a local variety, is a very acidic, but it's can have nice citrusy and floral aromas that can be preserved with the Sharman method. So yes, two very nice varieties that can be interesting in the next future for Sicilian sparkling.
Great. We'll be looking forward to that. Catarratto and Nerello Mascalese. Gabriele.
I think the guys kind of stole me most of the varieties that I could.
Yeah, Verdicchio. Don't say Verdicchio again.
Yeah, Verdicchio. Verdicchio is the high. We like to call Verdicchio as the highest latitude in terms of style, grape variety.
Yeah, I'll just change your nicknames to Verdicchio Boys instead of the Three Musketeers.
Okay. Anyway, I think one of the most interesting not mentioned varieties, it's Nebbiolo for the production of sparkling wines. And the reason why is that it has, as needed, very high acidity and not many anthocyanins. But you have a lot of tannins, and so if you manage it in the right way, you can get the wine that has the weight of a Pinot Noir on the palate, and you feel that on your tongue, and that is a very food friendly sort of style, and it is a bit of a bet, I will say, because it's quite recent, but it of course comes from Piedmont, where they had the longest tradition, as I told you before, with the Altalanga varieties, which are the Champagne varieties. But I think that Nebbiolo might have its own identity, even if vinified as a sparkle.
Interesting. We'll see how it develops. Listen, just before we close, we have Stefan next, but I wanted to remind you, next week they're kicking off with this Festival Franciacorta Digital Edition, and we will be hosting a room next week, 8 p.m. So next week, save the date, WSET diploma versus VIA in terms of Franciacorta study. So there'll be kind of a duel, myself and my colleagues from the office, Rebecca Lawrence, she's also a WSET educator, Jacopo Lan, Francesco Marchia, who's also VIA faculty as of this recent, and many other, hopefully, will be joining us. And that's next week, 8 p.m. Ciao, Stefan. I've never seen you come up to the stage, so welcome. And then we will close.
Thanks. I'm Stefan from Munich, and as this room is about to close, I put my question very briefly. It's a question for Giacomo. So, as Stevie already mentioned, that there is some confusion in the market between the Asti and the Moscato d'Asti. Don't you think that the recent DOCG of Canelli is sort of cannibalizing the market in a way? Thank you. I'm done speaking.
Good question. Giacomo.
Thank you for the question, Stefan. There was also a question from Lan before that. It was concerning the climate change. Just to mention just one more thing, we are studying with the University of Pisa these issues, and for example, one of the many experiments that we're doing is to we have created a fake berry that has been put inside the cluster of Moscato, and during the vintage time we use different kind of leaf covers, and at the end of the harvest we vinify. We have micro vinifications in order to understand the difference that the lights and the different coverage of the cluster brings to the wine. But just to mention one thing, for Stefan, yes, the DOCG Canelli was recently announced and accepted by the Ministry of Agriculture. We believe that Canelli should it won't be mentioned Moscato on the label, and we believe that is going to help a little bit the Moscato Dusty passionate to understand that Canelli represents the higher part, the highest value for Moscato Dusty lovers. I mean, we don't believe that it's gonna cannibalize it, because just a small area of the total amount of Moscato Dusty that can be produced is going to be used for Canelli. At the moment, there are only about 100 hectares that are used to produce Moscato Dusty Canelli, because it was already possible to produce Moscato Dusty with the mention of Canelli, but that is still involving just a few. Just maybe 150 hectares of Moscato. So we believe that it's going to help the whole image of Moscato Dusty.
Great. I think that is all for now. The Three Musketeers, they'll be taking a break. They're tired. They need their summer rest. So we'll be coming back with them after the summer is out. Next week, Franciacorta, we'll be doing a little bit of a deep dive. And thank you for staying with us. You're still here. And we're going to close. So for one last time for Gabriele.
Swirl, swirl, snap.
Ciao ragazzi.
Sip and spit. Once again, here we go. Swirl, sniff, sip, sniff.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, Cin Cin.